Well, entrepreneurship is evolving, and with it are the rules of success. This next session will explore what it takes for entrepreneurs to establish a right to win in today's dynamic business landscape. We have with us a visionary entrepreneur, author of Harsh Realities, and the chairman of Marico Limited, who's going to be setting the stage by sharing some key insights on how entrepreneurs can create their own path to success. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for none other than Mr. Harsh Mariwala.
So, good evening to all of you. Very happy that my cousin, Sanjay, who is the president of IMC, called me to speak at this event. I was earlier also to some extent involved in IMC, but then I think Sanjay has taken it far more seriously than what I did. Nonetheless, I'm very happy that we have a good gathering here of entrepreneurs, and in the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to speak about my own journey and what it takes to be a good entrepreneur. So, to me, I think any business has to grow, because if the business doesn't grow, then it doesn't excite all the stakeholders. So growth is like oxygen. It excites all the stakeholders. When I say stakeholders, it means shareholders or promoters, employees, associates, customers, and society. But the biggest challenge the entrepreneurs face is, how do I start with that growth mindset, and how do I take it all the way to the bottom? Because normally the growth mindset starts at the top, but the biggest challenge is, how do you take it all the way to the bottom of your organization? And growth has to be sustainable and also profitable over a period of time. I know when you start a new business, it may take some time for that business to be profitable, but ultimately, you will only judge a business when it starts showing results. So I find it difficult to understand many new age businesses which go on bleeding more and more, and you never see this visibility sign in terms of when will it become profitable. But thank God all the investors now are getting wiser, and now they are demanding more and more returns, so which is a very good sign. So if I look at my own journey, and I'll talk about some of the key areas where entrepreneurs should look at when they want to grow their business. So I think the first thing when we started, our objective was to increase market share. So we were operating in segments like coconut oil. We have Parachute coconut oil, and we had a very small market share. And then we were able to increase the market share from virtually a 0% market share to becoming a market leader. In a brand like Saffola, we pioneered a journey towards identifying healthy premium edible oils. And we've occupied that positioning since then. So the key thing is, when your market share is low, how can you increase market share is the biggest challenge. And one thing I've realized, that in a highly competitive business environment, you have to be innovative. It's a matter of time, others will copy you. So you have to be innovative on a perpetual basis. And if I look back at the success of Parachute, I would say we did a lot of innovations in the area of packaging, converted the whole market from tin to plastics. And I think that really helped us becoming a market leader. So from a 15% market share, our market share jumped to 50%. I will take one more example of oats. We launched Saffola oats. And in that category, plain oats, we were fighting with competitors like Quaker, Kellogg's. And we got some market share, some 15% market share. So at one stage, we said that how can we increase our market share? And I think for any business, consumer insighting, customer insighting plays a very, very important role. And your growth has to be dependent on what you find out from your customers. So when we started doing insighting on oats, we realized that Indians like savory breakfast and not sweet breakfast. So that's how we identified masala oats as a category to grow. And we launched masala oats. And that category now, over a period of last 5-6 years, has become a 400 crore category. And in that category, we have an 80% market share. Now, because of that, our market share in the plain oats also increased dramatically. And now we are close to becoming a market leader if you combine plain oats and masala oats. So what I'm trying to say is innovation has played a very, very crucial role. And I think every business has to innovate on a perpetual basis. Even in a commodity business, there are opportunities to innovate, just like we did in coconut oil. You have to dig deep and find out from the consumers what can you do it differently to be differentiated in the marketplace. Now, when we reached a 50% market share in coconut oil, we said that beyond a point, you can't go on increasing market share. So then your job as a market leader is to increase market size. So what happens to a brand like Colgate, which they are market leaders in oral care? I think the whole job, instead of taking more and more market share, is to increase market size. Can Colgate ask their customers to use toothpaste not just once a day, but twice a day? And in India, I think very few people, compared to the total population, brush their teeth twice a day. And if they were able to do it successfully, their sales can jump dramatically. So when we started in recent times, we realized that youngsters stopped using coconut oil. And we said that how do we handle this challenge? So we said that instead of applying it for post-wash, can we make them realize that coconut oil is good for hair? It has a conditioning effect. And can we make them use pre-wash? So we came with a campaign, 1 hour champikia, which is you have to apply coconut oil 1 hour prior to shampooing your hair. And I think that played a very important role in ensuring that the customer who was dropping out continued using our product in a different way prior to shampooing. But what I'm trying to say is that there has to be continuous effort to identify what's happening at the consumer end and give solutions to ensure that you go on increasing your sales as well as market shares. Over a period of time, we said that now we have created strong brands. So how do we use these brands to go into newer categories? And for us, each brand stands for a certain property. So Parachute stands for purity of coconut. Can we launch other products under the same brand name in hair care and skin care? So we have come out a whole range of other hair oils, skin care products, and I think that has given us a newer opportunity to grow. And the same thing with Saffola. Saffola stands good for health. So that's how we've gone into oats, masala oats, and now we've gone into muesli and soya products. So there is a continuous process of identifying where else can you grow from what assets you've created. But it has to be within a certain boundary. You know, I can't launch a household product under brand name Saffola. It has to be a healthy product. It has to be a food. And the same thing, coconut, everything about coconut Parachute has to be based on coconuts. Then as you grow, you always start questioning how can you grow more and more. So I am a big proponent of inorganic growth also. But any acquisition or inorganic growth, it's a means to an end. And one has to be very clear why you want to acquire a brand. We acquired a brand from Hindustan Lever, whom we were fighting with in coconut oil. And the whole objective of that was to consolidate our market share. So from 50% market share, we went to 60% market share. We acquired Medicare, which is an anti-lice shampoo from Procter & Gamble. And we saw a potential of launching the same product in an oil format. Because at that time, when we acquired this brand 20 years back, the overall penetration of shampoos was much lesser in rural areas. So we launched Medicare in oil format, and the sales just doubled within 1 year. We wanted to enter some other markets outside India. So we made 2 acquisitions in Egypt in pre and post-wash hair care. We acquired 3 brands in South Africa in ethnic hair care. We acquired 3 brands in Vietnam. But the whole objective of that was to get us an entry in that market in broadly the area we want to be in. I'm a big believer of focus. Do a few things, but do them well. And our focus in Marico is to be in what we call beauty and wellness. So we will not go beyond that. But in that, we will try and go on identifying opportunities and grow. And then, of course, we went into a new business, completely new business in terms of the service business and skincare when we launched our Kaya Skin Clinics. The business environment today is very, very dynamic, very uncertain, very complex, and the biggest disruptor in our lives is technology. We've seen what COVID did. We are seeing what geopolitical developments are doing to our businesses. But I think the biggest disruptor, which is going to remain for many, many years, is going to be technology. And I think the key thing is how do you leverage technology to your advantage is a big, big challenge. And I find that many entrepreneurs are struggling to deal with technology issues. What it can do, does it act as a threat? Can we make it as an opportunity? So our sector, which is an FMCG sector, got disrupted about 5 years back when we started seeing emergence of D2C brands. Until 5 years or 7 years back, it was very difficult for any new manufacturer to enter FMCG segment because you needed large budgets, advertising budgets. You needed physical distribution covering lakhs of outlets. So we all thought that we are the most defensive sector and nobody can enter. Until all the D2C brands came in. And today, I don't know how many, 300-400 D2C brands must be existing in the environment. So how do you treat that from Marico's point of view? One is to look at it from a threat point of view. Some D2C brands will come in and impact us. Another is to look at it from an opportunity point of view. So we said that, of course, we have to protect the threat part, but can we actually look at acquiring D2C brands? And the approach required to manage D2C brands is very, very different than the FMCG brands. The mindset is required is very different. You have to be far more agile. You're dealing with smaller budgets. And you have to leverage digital marketing. It requires a different type of talent. So we said that we have to house it in a different team, under a different CEO, at a different location, because we don't want the FMCG mindset to influence the D2C mindset. And we did that, and over a period of last 3 years, we acquired 4 brands. We also launched our own brands, and today, next year, we will cross 1,000 crore turnover in our D2C businesses. And over a period of next 1 or 2 years, it will be as profitable as FMCG businesses. But the key thing was to look at these disruptions from an opportunities point of view and man it in through a different team at a different location. I think that played a very, very important role. Now, when it comes to digital disruptions, I think I again find that many entrepreneurs are struggling. How can I digitize? What should I digitize? A lot will depend on the kind of business one is in, but one has to identify and prioritize where would you want to start digital interventions. In our case, we thought sales and distribution will be the biggest leverage for us in terms of digital applications. So just to give one example, our sales rep goes to many shops, and in the earlier days, they used to decide the route which they would take in an area, physical area. And now we have a standardized route map, which will be the most optimized way of traveling in that particular locality. Then when a sales rep goes to a shop, what does that sales rep sell? Because we have totally, in Marico, we have 861 SKUs, stock keeping units. So you can't ask the retailer 800 questions in terms of which one does he want. So depending on the retailer's past buying patterns, a trigger goes to the sales rep and that rep goes to that particular shop in terms of what to sell. I think that makes the job of the sales rep very, very easy in terms of ensuring that depending on the shop, what they should be selling in that particular shop. So we have 860 SKUs, supplies coming in from 62 different locations, 33 depots, about 1,000 distributors. So the whole digital journey in terms of sales and distribution has played a very important role in improving effectiveness of the sales and distribution function. I'm just giving one example, but depending on the business, one can think of digitizing operations and ensuring that it gives us good returns. But every business will have to digitize. There is no escape from any business not to digitize. Let me now just sum up my learnings. I think first is growth, as I mentioned. You have to dream big. But I strongly believe that you have to dream big with feet on the ground. You can't just dream big without any roadmap of achieving where you want to go. I talked about focus. I'm a big believer in focus. Just do a few things, but do them well. Focus leads to depth, and depth leads to excellence. And I think that's very important in any business. We are going to get disrupted because of the world, the way it's behaving. And how do you turn those disruptions into opportunities? COVID also taught us that agility is very important. In the earlier days, vaccines used to take 10 years to develop, but in COVID, we saw vaccines coming out within 2 years. So agility is very, very important on any CEO's list of improving capability. So how do you become agile? How do you reduce your bureaucracy? How do you empower people? How do you move fast is a very, very important part of today's world because the world is moving very fast. For newer initiatives, we believe that you have to remove escape buttons. For example, I talked about the international business. Earlier, it was being managed by the local team, and invariably that would not get attended until one fine day we said that the international business has to be managed by a separate, like a separate profit center under a separate leader. And I think that played a very important role. Because we had a person only doing international business, we were able to acquire many businesses. We were able to expand to newer geographies. And today, about 27% of our turnover comes out of international business. I think every business has some sources of competitive advantage, which, if done well, it can have a discontinuous impact on your results. For an FMCG company, it's marketing, it's distribution, it's new product development. But depending on the kind of business one has to identify what is my source of competitive advantage and go all out in being the best in those 3-4 areas. In other functions, you can be good. I'm not saying you should be bad. But in these 3-4 functions, you should be the best in terms of the quality of talent, the processes, the way you're doing things. And I think that if you do that, you will have a discontinuous impact on the success of a business. I can't not talk about talent. There is a war for talent, and many entrepreneurs take talent not as seriously as they should be taking. It should be, to me, it's a top priority item. How do you create the right employee value proposition for your company, which will help you attract talent and retain talent? So attracting talent is one challenge, and again, retaining talent is another challenge. So how do you create the right culture where people enjoy working, where there is enough challenge, where there is very little politicking and backbiting, and things happen on merits. I talked about innovation. You have to create a culture of innovation on a perpetual basis because, as I said, it's a matter of time. Others will copy you. I find that entrepreneurs are not willing to delegate. They think they know it all. And the role of an entrepreneur changes. When you are small, you have to do things on your own. And when you grow and become mid-sized, you have to get things done from others, which is a completely different ballgame. Issues of team building, processes come in. And then when you're large, you have to influence others. So I think it's very important to select the right talent and delegate, but not abdicate. When you're delegating to somebody, you are equally responsible for that person's work. But that fear of losing control is something which I find many entrepreneurs, they are not able to live up to that. I think ultimately the challenge to entrepreneurs is how can each and every person who is an employed person behave like an owner. If that person is behaving like an owner, when that person thinks that this is my company and any wasted expenditure, any risk-taking, anything which is good for the organization, they should be doing it on their own. I think that is the biggest challenge. For that to happen, you have to empower people. You have to create the right reward system and the right culture and the right respect levels. And I think that's a big, big challenge for all organizations. And the same thing, how can an entrepreneur who is an owner behave like a professional? Because in an entrepreneurial culture, you don't want things to happen through influence. So how can you deal with issues on merits and not use your ownership status to influence things? Finally, let me end by saying that governance is very, very important. Irrespective of the size of the organization, one has to look at governance, because if you take some shortcuts and if you get caught, it will put you back by many, many years. So from day one, I think there has to be very, very high emphasis on governance. Let me end by talking about purpose. I think every organization, every business has a purpose. And the business of business is more than business. Business is accountable not only to shareholders, but also to all its stakeholders. And these include employees, customers, associates, and society. Businesses need to add value to each of its stakeholders. And the role of business leaders is to create value for society by providing solutions to the challenges of society. And each organization plays a very important role in improving mankind. Thank you.